welcome to Spectrum Days, the podcast where we ruin our childhood memories of games we used to play with me, Chris, and my cousin Phil. So, what game are we going to try to remember today?
Tetris. And as producer John said, we don't really need to say much more. One can move on to part two. I think he's quite right.
How'd it go? Something like that?
Oh, my Game Boy must be on. Hold on. Sorry.
Oh, Game Boy.
Yeah, I think that's going to be really what we're talking about, everybody, is Tetris on the Game Boy. It did, of course, indeed come out on the Spectrum. Quite frankly, though, I didn't realise that. It came out the year before.
Yeah, I'm amazed.
Yeah.
I'm amazed.
Yeah, I certainly didn't play it on there. Never had even seen it or was aware that it was on there. I think all three of us had probably moved on to the Master System by 1988. I suspect we might not have been playing the Spectrum as much.
Yeah.
Anyway, I certainly never played it on there anyway.
We've been teenagers then.
Yeah.
You know, Spectrum loading games on tape.
Yeah, I think we've done our time behind the belt that is tape. I think.
Yeah, because if we did have Tetris on the Spectrum, I could have imagined like spending a good time on that. You'd load it up; it would take you typical 5 minutes to load it, get it working. Make sure your screwdriver's in the tape cassette player. Get the game running, and. Well, yeah, I could imagine playing a lot of that. So, yeah, I think I'm going to play the Spectrum version.
Yes. Yeah. It is available. Those of you who are watching our YouTube channel, as usual, I shall put it in the description box below. There is a link to it so you can play it online on the good old Internet Archive, which is archive.org. But, yeah, I will put the link below. I've resisted playing it. We'll do that in the second half of our podcast. We'll give you the opportunity to have a go and join in with us. This first part of the podcast, for those of you who haven't watched it before, we're going to try and witter on and remember a game that we haven't played, he says, lying, for 30-odd years. Because I'm afraid, chaps, I'm going to have to break our rule here. This is a game I play an awful lot on my Game Boy. I'm a Game Boy collector. And Tetris is probably one of my all-time favourite games.
Yeah, I probably have played Tetris, but not on the Game Boy in the last 30 years. Because it's one of those kind of games, I think any new console or any TV or anything that comes with some kind of gaming capabilities, I end up looking for Tetris. Because it's one of the only games that, everyone can sort of just play, and it's such a great game, But I mean, I know our extensive research and metrics and data tells us that everyone who listens to this is at least between 45 and 55 years old. So we
speaking up.
Hello, boys and girls. It's me, your old Uncle Clivey Wivey. The boys over at Spectrum Days just wanted to reassure you about getting old. It's nothing to worry about. Being middle-aged isn't as bad as you might think. I mean, I'm a lot older than middle-aged, and it hasn't stopped me. I'm still having fun, and my brain's still as sharp as a tack. Look, I've just invented this lovely bike. Stick batteries in it, and you can ride on it all day. Anyway, Tetris, that's a lovely game. I've completed it.
So we kind of know that everyone does know about this game, but let's just give a little bit of background. You never know.
Oh, go on. It's a puzzle game. There you are. It's the archetypal puzzle game. It's probably the puzzle game. I think certainly for me and probably a lot of other people, it was that first real puzzle game that absolutely hooked you in. And then that's really what puzzle games are about. And I think really ever since, that's what puzzle games, anyone making a puzzle game has tried to recreate, is the addictiveness and simplicity of Tetris. Tetris is simply a load of falling blocks, different shapes, that fall down from the top of the screen. You can move them or rotate them, a bit like puzzles in a puzzle you might play, jigsaw puzzle type pieces. As they fall down, they collect at the bottom of the screen wherever you happen to have made them fall. You rotate the blocks or whatever as they're falling and try and join them up, try and make them a cohesive line from horizontal from left to right. Once you do make a complete line, those blocks disappear. So it's a bit like making things disappear by matching them up. So you've got like the Match 3 games that are sort of popular now on mobile, or certainly have been popular for quite a while. It's sort of the first game of that type that became super popular. I'm not saying it's the first puzzle game, and I'm not saying it's the first sort of falling block type game. There was probably other games similar-ish. But as far as mega popularity and making everyone else go, right, we've got to make a game like this, Tetris is the granddad, really.
No, I was going to say, and it's so popular that they're going to be releasing a film about it soon, right?
Yeah, we're filming this the 7th of March. I believe the film's coming out the 14th, 15th of this month. So by the time you're listening to this podcast, the film, I think, should have been out for a week or so, something like that. It's starring Taron Egerton, who I think was he Kingsman, or he was in the more recent Robin Hood film, which was terrible, and he was a few other things. Wasn't he Eddie Eagle Edwards? And he was a few other. Anyway, I think
you didn't like the Robin Hood film,
the one that he was in. I think it was Taron Egerton. No, dreadful. It was like Black Hawk Down, but not as good.
With bows and arrows.
Yeah, Black Hawk Down with bows and arrows. It was terrible.
Were they wearing green tights?
Yeah, combat fatigues.
What do you mean my version of Robin Hood's like Black Hawk Down? It's nothing like it. Some of the scenes are quite similar, I'll grant you. And the urban setting here behind me is reminiscent of Black Hawk Down, but other than that, they're completely different. I think you'll find my version of Robin Hood has captured the romance of the original novels, that is, Robin Hood. Anyway, I know I sound Welsh, but actually, I was born in Birkenhead, and both my parents are from Liverpool, so, curious, isn't it? Curious. Anyway, Tetris. I'm too young, I've never heard of it, so I'm not middle-aged like you idiots. In 2022, I was in a play called Cock. Says it all.
Yeah, so the Tetris film is coming out, which is I'm very, very pleased with that. I've always thought that there should be a film. I mean, of all of any game where there's a story behind the production of it, the writing of the game, the selling of the rights of the game, the intrigue, the people that ended up releasing it on multi-different platforms around the world. This is about the only game I can think of where it's actually very much worthy of telling that tale. And there's no way that I'm going to pretend here in our small little podcast about us and our memories of games are going to try and pretend to educate you all in the histories and mysteries of Tetris. But there is several videos on YouTube which I shall put links to, including The Gaming Historian, which is probably the best one to watch. It's nearly an hour long, I think, and really tells you the full story.
Yeah, because this is going to be a dramatization, but I'm pretty sure I've seen back in the UK, was there a documentary about the making? I have seen at least seen on the TV a documentary about the making of, and then looking around, you can see there is a Ecstasy of Order, the Tetris Masters, which is a documentary about people preparing for the classic Tetris World Championship. So and like you say, there's various things on YouTube about the history of it, but this is going to be a dramatization. So interesting.
Yeah. I mean, to give some the basic backstory of it, it was created at the Soviet Academy of Sciences. Alexei Pajitnov was the guy that actually wrote it and came up with it. He was studying speech recognition or coming up with speech recognition. That was his job there at the Soviet Academy of Sciences. So quite an interesting guy. And I mean, that's very early on I think he started in 1979, so into the early 80s. So that's quite early on. I had no idea there was speech recognition stuff was being done back then. So they were on probably the cutting edge of stuff there that they were working on. He'd made several puzzle games already in the late 70s and early 80s before he came out with Tetris in 1984. Quite like this quote. He's quoted as saying, "Games allow people to get to know each other better and act as revealers of things you might not normally notice, such as their way of thinking." I rather like that. I think that just shows you quite where he was in creating games and what he was trying to do. It wasn't just trying to create a game to make money, or I think he was interested very much in the sort of the science of making games, and he was influenced by games he played as a child, because obviously over there in the Soviet Union there was very little for young people to do as far as pastimes go. The game that he based on was a board game. I'm probably going to get the name wrong. Pentamino, which used shapes called
Pentomino.
Sorry. Pentomino? Do you think it's Pentamino? Or Pentaminos with the little blocks that actually fall? I'd have no idea. Which they form the basis of the shapes that we see in Tetris today. It was Tetris is formed from the words tetra, meaning four, and Alexei's favourite sport, that of tennis. So we get the word Tetris from. The computers they were using were pretty limited. I believe that they were just using the sort of character set rather than actual graphics to actually create the first version of it, sort of the ASCII type set, I believe, something like that. Then they moved on, the place that he was working at moved on to some different computers, and they were sort of using them in the evening. I say there was 3 or 4 others of them at this place who were, I suppose, naughtily using the systems in the sort of spare time and in the evenings to do stuff that they weren't really supposed to be doing. And they came up with this game, and it was a hit in the sense of as much as they could distribute it over there. They weren't really selling it because Russia obviously had the state monopoly on import and export of anything of copyrighted work. So anything you created, particularly as they were working for the Russian government, in inverted commas, within the state-owned business that they were in, research centre. So they had no rights to it. They created it. And any profits would obviously go to the people. It wasn't until after 1989, after appearing on various other platforms, various publishers, that it came out on the Game Boy. Again, the story of how it appeared here, there, and everywhere. It got bought up by loads of different people, but lots of people had different. So some people had rights to sell, release it only on the IBM PC, but only in certain countries, and then other people bought rights to it, but that was only allowed to be used on other sorts of machines just in Japan. And then there was the fighting over the rights for it to be an arcade conversion, and then for consoles, and blah blah blah. It's an absolute nightmare. So it's a miracle that we ended up sort of seeing it at all, really. But as far as the Game Boy, that was the one, I think, really where everyone suddenly saw it, and it became absolutely massive. Over there in the UK, we didn't get the Game Boy until 1990, and it was the pack-in, so you didn't even have to buy Tetris.
Nintendo Game Boy also comes in 2 configurations. Game Boy, which comes with stereo headphones, batteries, and the killer puzzle game Tetris Buddy, or as the Game Boy Basic System, where you buy the game of your choice.
So a game that probably most of us would never have bought by looking at it.
Yeah.
We were forced to play it, because if you got a Game Boy, you got it with it, and quite likely it might even have been the only game you got that Christmas or whenever it came out, was that and Tetris. It's bizarre. Yeah, totally. It did. I mean, I distinctly remember the first time that I saw the Game Boy was in our local toy shop, of which had two branches. One in the town that we have both lived in, and also in the other town where they have another branch. That's just trying to vaguely disguise where we live, so our fans don't come round and murder us in the night. They had games in there in one corner in the larger of the establishments that the person owned, and they had one of the first of those sort of stands that are now phenomenally popular and collectible, where you actually have a sort of installed POS stand, with a big sort of plastic display and a lit up screen at the top saying Game Boy, and the Game Boy was attached by some thing that you couldn't wrestle it free from it, and it was displaying Tetris, and I remember being terribly nonplussed by it, fascinated by seeing the Game Boy.
Yeah,
very excited, like, wow, there's a Game Boy. My God, it's 110 quid or whatever. I think it was about around the 100 quid mark.
Yeah. Yeah, why did we want a Game Boy then? Just the fact that the promise of being able to play a game anywhere. Was that just enough? Because if they were using Tetris to sell it, was there a Mario game quickly? Yeah. I don't know.
I'm not sure Mario Land came out. I expect producer John is tapping furiously away at the keys now to let us know in semaphore when Mario Land came out. I think he's telling us it was 1989. Nod if I'm right, producer John. Yes. In which case, Super Mario Land must have been the launch title over here then. In which case, that would have been the game every kid would have wanted. But you would have got bloody Tetris whether you wanted it or not.
And then you would grow to love it.
Yeah.
Like you say,
totally.
It's a special game. Very special game.
It's the most addictive game that I've ever played. It's the game I have played more hours of than any other game. It's a game that I've personally owned more copies of than any other game. Bought more copies of than any other game. It's basically the most successful, I think, of the sort of pack-in titles. I think there's something sold like 35 million copies to date or something of Tetris, and it did well on the NES as well, so they had it on both of their mainline platforms at the time. This is Nintendo, we're talking about here, and as far as me and my experience of working in the shop, which was 2 years after that, I started working in the games industry 2 years after that, buying and selling all this stuff in various shops in the Southwest. The Tetris totally changed the age range, the demographic, the everything about selling games, because suddenly you had older people wanting to play Tetris. When word got round, I mean, you never had that. I mean, and I was there for, 5 or 6 years, so I saw from sort of, the Game Boy Master System 8-bit console era up to the start of sort of PlayStation and, the CD-based machines. Very rarely did you get adults of a certain age coming in and buying consoles specifically for themselves. You certainly never got one coming in, buying it for one game. I knew so many older people who were coming in to buy a Game Boy because they wanted Tetris, and in fact weren't even coming in to buy a Game Boy. They just wanted, I want that thing that plays Tetris. I want to play Tetris. They didn't even really know what they were buying.
Don't be daft, June, love. That's just your hands.
Other than they were wanting to play Tetris. Yeah. I mean, I'm really struggling to think of any other time when that really happened. I mean, certainly other pack-in titles helped sell systems. That would be a lie to say it didn't. I mean, Super Mario World on the Super Nintendo, probably, again, one of the most amazing pack-in titles you could throw away with a system. I mean, incredible. Sonic sold Mega Drives, but it didn't change the demographic of people who were buying systems. like Tetris did.
So, what other platforms did you play it on, Phil? So you played on the Game Boy?
I think back then, I'm not sure that I did play it anywhere else. I mean, it as I was sort of hinting at earlier, it spawned a lot of copy things, and Sega certainly were very keen to get on board. I believe, I'm probably going to get this terribly wrong, but I got a vague feeling they were the ones who got the arcade rights or something. I think it was Tengen got the rights to it as well, and they produced a Mega Drive version, but it got recalled immediately because of threats of lawsuits and all these sorts of things. So there's like 10 copies of the Tengen version of the Mega Drive one, and they're like one of the most sought after retro things that you can buy, and they go for like thousands of pounds or something crazy. Right. So I actually at the time, for me, Tetris was Game Boy, and Game Boy meant Tetris. I mean, and I think a lot of people think the same. I think I do think it's the best version. I've played a lot since, and also a lot of copies of it. I suspect if you look in any of the online stores for either Apple or Android, you'll probably find more falling block games than anything else. It's so sort of copied. Yeah. And also a bit like Doom, it gets ported now to everything. So you can probably play it on your touchscreen fridge, and you name it, will probably have a copy of Tetris on it somewhere. Yeah. I haven't found a version I like better. I have found ones that are almost as good, but that's very recently. I think the version on the Switch, which is this sort of battle royale one, I don't know whether you've seen that, which I think possibly is free to play on the Switch, where I think you're playing against 99 other people online at once. Right. So it's the actual battle version of Tetris. Because quite frankly, when I played Tetris on the Game Boy, I didn't know anyone who had the link cable thing. I rarely played the link. I used to buy and sell them in the shop, but actually playing other people, 2-player, were using the link cable, or even 4-player. You could have that. There was the 4-player one on Game Boy. I hardly ever did it.
Yeah, I think I did a few on a school trip or something.
Right.
Yeah, I did I put a poll out on our Twitter account. You know, get a lot of viewers there, and asking that on what platform did you first play Tetris, and of course we are a bit ZX Spectrum skewed, and but in this case it came out 48% Game Boy, followed by the Spectrum 30%, and but someone piped up with someone came up with Nathan mentioned the Commodore 64 version, and I'd never I don't think I ever played it. I did play. A friend of mine had a Commodore 64 dice. I did play a lot of C64 games. I got a soft touch, place in my heart for the Commodore as well, especially the music. And
everybody.
And he mentions it had an epic 26-minute music soundtrack, which is completely different than the music me and you know on the Game Boy, and it's a 26-minute opus by Wally Beban, also known as AKA Hagar, and apparently he is best known for the half-hour soundtrack for the Commodore 64 version of Tetris, which was published by Mirasoft in 1987. So, and I've listened, and the soundtrack is awesome. Go and listen to if you've got 26 minutes, go and listen to the C64 Tetris soundtrack.
Or you could listen to the second half of the Spectrum Days podcast, which is coming up now, because I think we've exhausted our memories of Tetris, quite frankly, and I think we should now go off and play it. So, as I say, there is a link below if you'd like to join in and play the Spectrum version, but we will be playing the Game Boy version. I've got, like I say, I'm a Game Boy collector, so I've got several Game Boys here. I've got my modded Game Boy, so I can play it in the dark. I know we all like to play with our Game Boys in the dark. I've also got my Game Boy Advance SP, so you can play that one in the dark as well. So I could play in the dark, two-handed, with my many copies of Tetris or my vast other Game Boy collection. I could play it anywhere I like.
You could play the Spectrum version in the dark as well.
Yeah, you could. You won't be able to see the keys, and it's very complicated, Chris. You're going to find it very difficult. It's left, right, down, and it's very
which
complex.
Is the key? I'm sure you press the wrong key for when you speed the block up when you go.
That's it.
Yeah, and then
those
times when you get a line and you're kind of like you've lined it up in the wrong place, but if you keep spinning it around, you might be able to move it at least one block over, or sort of things like that. So there's I'll see if I can do that. Yeah,
that's the game.
Spin it.
It's like you've played it before or something.
I have. Not on the Spectrum.
So there you are, folks. It'll just be a few seconds for you, but for us, it's going to be a few days of playing Tetris. So join us in a few seconds. Please do pause and have a go at playing the game, and join in with us and tell us what you thought of Tetris. Congratulations on reaching the middle of the podcast. Or if you're watching us on YouTube, congratulations on reaching the middle of the video. Whilst Chris and John and Phil are off playing today's game, you can also do the same by using the link below if you're watching us on our YouTube channel. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter, and you can friend us on Facebook by simply looking up Spectrum Days. Don't forget to give us 5 stars if you are listening to us on the podcast, or give us a thumbs up if you're here on YouTube. And also comment below on what game you'd like to see next. And as if by magic, the lads are back to give you their opinion on today's game. And welcome back to part 2 of Tetris on Spectrum Days Games We Played. Thank you for pausing. For those of you who did you play along with us? If so, please do let us know in the comments below, because no one as yet has actually said, yes, I did pause, click on the link and play the game, and then tell us what you think. No one's done that yet, so please do. Is anyone listening? If you are listening, the special code word of the day is Tetris is only good on the Game Boy and crap everywhere else. If you put that in the comments, we'll know that you at least got to the beginning of part 2.
So what platform did you play Tetris on?
Everything. I bet you didn't. When I say everything, that of course is a churlish thing to say, because it really is. Good Lord, there's so many versions of it.
Yeah,
absolutely everywhere.
But there's only one true version.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually really pleased to hear you say that. Those of you who are new to the podcast, in the first half we talk about our memories. In the second half, we actually play the game, usually having not played the game for, well, in most cases, 40 years with the Spectrum games. But this, as you probably listened to in the first half, I play this regularly, but I don't think Chris has, as far as, well, certainly not playing it on the Game Boy. I'm assuming you haven't played it for a long time on the Game Boy?
No, I haven't played it for a long time on the Game Boy until this last couple of days. I've played it on all kinds of places, like Xbox, I think I've played it on. I've probably played it on an aeroplane or two as well.
Wow,
on the aeroplane. Yeah, the aeroplane platform.
That'd be a weird one to emulate.
No, when you're sat on a long flight and they've got some games and some TV shows, I'm sure I've played Tetris.
Actually, do you know what? When I flew to New York in 1996 on Virgin Airways, they had Super Nintendos built into the built into it was awesome. It had Super Mario World and a handful of other games, including Tetris.
and that's how you play Tetris.
That pretty much is it. Yeah. No, that's what I was saying. I'm really intrigued to hear you say that you like it better on the Game Boy. Because for me, it's where I first played it. It's where I've continued to play it. It's where I still play it to this day. It's why I'm sat here with my Game Boy now. Oh dear, the screen's just fallen off. No, that's not good, is it? That's really not good. That's not good. But yeah, I played so many other versions, and I'm sure everyone who is watching the YouTube video now will see that I've played it on quite a few, as many as I could find that I had time to find and record for the purposes of the video. And I didn't really like many of them. The NES version was okay.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But so what else did you play it on apart from the Game Boy?
The Spectrum.
Mm-hmm. We love the Spectrum.
Yeah, we do love the Spectrum.
Don't
but
say
not
anything bad.
Tetris on the Spectrum. We'll get into that in a minute. Well, I'll just tell you. So I've played it on the Game Boy, the Spectrum, and on the Amazon Fire Stick TV. There's a version there, but I only had a quick look at it.
Is that the official Tetris version?
Yeah, on their cloud gaming platform. You can buy a joypad and you can access some games through their system.
Right.
So, but yeah, the Game Boy is just the most pure, non-distracting Tetris. It's just Tetris on a monochrome screen. Nothing. The music's what it is, which is great. That music's brilliant. It just keeps going on, but nothing else is there to distract you. There's no thrills and bells and whistles of things that you don't need. It's just pure, undiluted Tetris, and I think that's what it should be. Yeah, and the Spectrum and the Game Boy one is just fantastic. You could just lose your time playing it, and it's just such a good game. But then when you play on the Spectrum one,
what was wrong with that, Chris?
It's that it was like, look, it's the same thing. Sometimes there's creativity within restrictions, right? I don't know what the phrase is. Sometimes when someone's got limited amount of resources, limited materials to work with, they can come up with real creativity. Sometimes when you get given too many colors, whatever, you can script. So like Spectrum should have been a good platform for doing Tetris, quite a limited palette of colors to choose from, quite limited, but no. I mean,
what's wrong with it?
Well, because they gone and used too many colors and too much. They should just keep
those
pure.
The magic eye pictures.
Oh, they got like isometric cubes in blue. Whilst you're dropping down Tetris blocks with shadows. Yeah. They've just gone too far. It's a typical. I mean, all respect for all developers out there, but it's a typical kind of. I'm going to show off. Oh, let's make it look better on a screenshot or something. But when you play it, it's just like, come on, I can't even see what I'm doing now. Look at the Game Boy version. It would have just been a plain background. That's all I asked for, a plain background.
Yeah, there isn't even a background really on the Game Boy, is there? There just isn't one. It's just the screen with blocks falling down.
Yeah.
There actually isn't a background.
Yeah. It's good. And the Spectrum, on the Game Boy one, each different type of block does have a pattern, a monochrome pattern. So when you build the screen up, they do look different. It's not just. So on the Spectrum version, they don't. Each block doesn't have a pattern, but it has a different color, and it's like mind bending. It's just horrible when you. It's just, I just don't like it.
If you look at it the right way, it's like those magic eye pictures, and it says stuff. It says, "Don't go to school. Play this forever."
I'll take you on a trip to another dimension, I think is what it's trying to tell me.
Yeah. Ebenezer good. Yeah.
But then then the background even changes.
Yeah. Well, that's with each level. Because there's a button in there. I thought, good. They've put a button in so you can change it to whichever background you want. But it's not. It's just ups the level difficulty, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's horrible. I mean, just everything about it.
It's a
just
shame.
like-
It's a real shame, isn't it? Because it's not a hard game to make.
No, they should just kept it simple. There's this, this concept of just keep things simple, and they just try to show off. They just try to show off. But there's levels where the background, other isometric shapes, circles, arrows, all kinds of stuff in a magenta, blue,
sort of blue
background.
Yes.
It's just like, oh, really? Really?
I mean, if anyone's listening to this and they think we're mad, I mean, did we get it wrong? Is there a way of getting rid of the background? I mean, let us know, because this is all through an emulator. We haven't got the instructions. We aren't sat here with the original thing with instructions to leaf through. So if we've got it wrong, let us know. But I agree. I hated it. I mean, technically, it does play a game of Tetris.
Yeah, it's smooth, and
it's just that background. It just makes it so flipping hard to see.
Yeah, and then they put stats on the left-hand side as well, like how many of the different blocks you've put in.
Yeah.
It constantly tells you, if anyone's ever listened to any other of our episodes, they know that I do like a good instructions section. It does actually show you what keys to use all the time.
Oh, yeah, on the
just
right,
in case you forget halfway through a game.
Up, down,
what am I doing? Where am I? What am I doing? Oh yeah, IPOSY space. You've got your score. It tells you what's next. It just tells you everything all the time. What's the film that's just won the Oscars? Everything
everywhere, all at once.
Yeah, well, that's Tetris on the Spectrum.
That's Tetris on the Spectrum. Best supporting actor, did it?
Yeah. So, if you have been watching the new Tetris film, then my suggestion is you do somehow get your hands on a Game Boy and play the real Tetris.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess on the PC. Did you play on the PC, or there must be some kind of pure Tetris, or even on the web? I bet
again, I'm sure anyone who's watching the YouTube channel, I'll have been putting on the screen the various versions that I looked for and could manage to play. I played the Mega Drive version, which I believe is the Tengen or Tengen release. I never know how you say that, which I think is the one that got recalled. Again, please let me know in the comments if I've got that wrong. So I think it sort of only 10 copies exist or something like that, something weird like that. It's one of those really expensive, rare Mega Drive games. So I played the Mega Drive version, which was okay. It wasn't bad. I played the NES one, as I mentioned, which isn't far off the Game Boy version, but I still preferred the Game Boy one. I played the official Tetris one that is online, the actual website, the Tetris website.
Yeah, Tetris.com.
So that's available to play, and that's okay. Again, I don't know. They've tried to implement using the mouse, which I had a go with. Again, I'm not sure about that, which is why I was pleased to hear Chris say that he preferred the Game Boy, because I was wondering, is it because that's where I play Tetris and have continued to play Tetris since 1990, or is it that no, actually Tetris just works really well on the Game Boy? So I'm pleased to hear someone who hasn't played it for a while is still going for the Game Boy one.
On the Tetris.com one, they show you where your blocks are going to drop to as well, right? Which is something.
It's a very sort of modern.
The Game Boy doesn't do that either, and it also shows you like the next 3 blocks that are coming. Was the Game Boy doesn't show you that many, right?
Yeah, the Game Boy will show you the next one that's coming. There's also
not the next 3.
Cheat. If you pause to stop you cheating, it does make the next one that's coming down disappear. but you can then press a button, I forget what it is, and you can make it reappear. There is a little cheat thing that you can that you can do on there. That's about as technical as the basic game of Tetris. Did you play the other version of Tetris on the Game B? Because Game A and Game B. Did you?
No, I didn't.
I'm guessing by the horrified look on your face that you didn't.
I didn't even do that. That's terrible, isn't it?
That's awful. Go and do it now.
Yeah.
Well, after this, you can go and do that. And
luckily, we don't have any paying subscribers, sponsorship, or any.
You had one game to play, man. Oh my God, that's
Phil,
terrible.
you don't pay me enough. You don't pay me enough to do two types.
He literally starts and it says Game A.
Yeah, it does. You're right.
It's about the only choice you've got, man.
You're right.
What?
You're right. You're absolutely right. Oh, I can't believe it. What a failure.
Well, Game B is basically, it puts a load of stuff on the screen already.
Right,
so
I remember
jumbled up load of blocks. And you can choose how many are on there and what height and what have you. So one of my favorite things to do on there is to put it on go on to Game B and put it on the highest, I think, which is sort of 9 and 5, I think. So 9 high or something and 5 speed. I can't remember what they refer to now, but the highest settings. And you've basically then the blocks are coming down like mad, and you've just got a whole mess of blocks with holes everywhere. Like you've just been playing the worst game of basic Tetris you've ever been playing, and you've got to try and put it right. It's that hook of Tetris where you're playing and you're getting it all nice and neat, and where do I fit that? You've got a gap, haven't you? And it drives you mad. And you think, oh no, I'll be able to fill it in a minute, and then it just gets worse.
Yeah.
And then you have to sort of start again. You're halfway up the screen. You think, oh, sod that.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll just start again.
I'll just drop whatever I can. Yes, right. You're absolutely right. I've just been going for a 4.
Well,
right?
That Game B, it's like someone else has just gone, ha, try this.
Well, so we both liked it. Both thought it was brilliant on the Game Boy.
Both
basically useless on all the other ones. And you completed Game B.
Completed Game B, yeah. I've never completed Game A. How far did you get, actually? How many lines did you get?
Whatever I sent you last, I did send you photographs just to prove that I did play it, thinking also that I might be doing okay. And then you just replied, then you kind of had double the amount of lines that I'd done.
Yeah. Well, it's good that you're trying.
Yeah, it's true.
That you're even having a go at these things.
That's right. I should still get a trophy. I should still get a trophy.
There's yours. 73 lines.
73 lines. There you go.
73. And I sent you one back with 129.
Yeah, there you go. Okay. You weren't too condescending, though, with your reply or anything. Yeah,
not
that's
too
good.
Much. For those of you who are watching the video, I will try and throw in some footage if I can film the screen on my Game Boy just to show it on the Game Boy, although I have put a backlight on it, so it's not technically as it was back in the day, but at least it might be filmable. I will also probably be using the Switch, which, if you didn't know, if you're a member of Nintendo, whatever it is, online, they've put a load of Game Boy games on there now. So you can now play Tetris on your Switch. So I shall probably record it from there just to get some decent footage.
What's that like?
What's what like? Tetris?
The Switch version.
It's not the Switch version. It's the Game Boy version.
It's literally the same, is it?
Yeah, they've emulated a load of Game Boy games. If you've got the Nintendo Online £7 a year or whatever it is thing, you can play Super Nintendo, I think, and Mega Drive, is it? Or no, Super Nintendo, NES, and Game Boy games, I think, something like that. Anyway, so you can play it on there. I shall probably record it from there, so at least you can get some decent footage. And I have got my Super Nintendo and Game Boy cartridge thing. I forgot Super Game Boy. That's it. and a copy of Tetris. I might, if I can be bothered, plug it into there so we can get some footage from that as well, just for the sake of completion.
Right. Well, that's it. It's a definite thumbs up from me.
And it's a 10 out of 10 from me.
I'm sure most people will say that they never even knew it was colour on the Spectrum because they were playing it on a black and white TV, and it was good.
Yeah, this is a very good point.
So we haven't been giving it the full experience. Oh
no! Tell you what, in the editing suite when I'm in there, I'll make some of the footage of the Spectrum go black and white, and people can decide whether that's better.
Now I'm thinking about it, I bet it's brilliant on the Spectrum with a black and white TV. How it was meant to be played.
I'll dig out the old black and white CRT just for that experience.
Yeah. In fact, probably all those patterns that we're looking at on these high def monitors, you wouldn't even see it. So you're right. Yeah, you're right, Phil. It was great on the Spectrum.
Man. It was actually.
Now I think about it,
it's my favourite version.
Yeah, with a black and white TV.
At least 11 out of 10 for me for the Spectrum version.
Yeah.
And
that's it.
Thumbs right up from Chris.
Right up.
Right up it.
Double thumbs up. A double thumbs up. You're playing it in a Spectrum with a black and white CRTV in a caravan.
Oh, yeah. On holiday and it's raining.
Yeah.
There we are.
That's it.
Well, there we are, folks. Yeah, do let us know in the comments below what you think of Tetris. Quite frankly, it's probably the best puzzle game ever and one of the best games I've ever played, and it usually does very well in various charts around the world, so I'm really not surprised that it's everywhere and people are still playing it to this day. I've been playing it throughout this entire podcast, and Chris just doesn't realise. And playing Game B with the Russian space shuttle thing. So, what game are we looking at next week, Chris?
So the one that we're going to look at next week is, I call it Star Fox, but you call it something different. Yeah, but
Starwing.
What? But I always called it Star Fox back in the day as well, I'm sure.
No, Starwing. I won't have it.
Or I might be getting it confused. All right. Well, let's talk about that one next week.
Yeah. Please do like and subscribe and let us know what games you think we ought to be looking at. But do join us next time for Star Fox Wing, where we shall be playing that on the good old Super Nintendo. And do have fun until then. And we'll see you soon.
Hello there, it's me, William Shatner, your favourite West Country movie star. I just want to get my 2 pence worth in on this game Tetris. You won't believe on the old bridge of the old Enterprise there that Mr. Chekhov, he won't stop playing it. You think he's there pressing knobs and like going into interspace galactic speed and all that. No, he's playing Tetris. He's there he's waiting for a 4. There's a 4 coming. Oh, he's got it. He got a Tetris. Well done there, Mr. Chekhov. Anyway, it's a great game, and this is the end of the programme now. So here's the boring bit about subscribing. Ciao for now!
If you'd like to hear more of this, then please do encourage us by subscribing. That way you won't miss out on the next episode. If you're listening to us on your favourite podcast platform, please give us 5 stars. And if you're watching us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up and leave a comment below about what game we should look at next. Feel free to follow us on Twitter. You can drop us a line using @SpectrumDaysPod, find us on our website, spectrumdays.com, and you can email us at hello@spectrumdays.com. And you can friend us on Facebook by looking up Spectrum Days.